Justin Trudeau's economic advisor as the next Liberal leader to trick Canadians into giving Liberals a fourth term in power. But he's just like Justin, and he's more of the same. We have the same Liberal MPs, the same Liberal advisors, the same Liberal promises, who will produce the same Liberal results. Doubling housing costs, doubling the debt, doubling lineups at food banks, enriching the global elites at the expense of the working class, and making our economy more helpless and reliant on the Americans than ever before. Now, Mark Carney is trying to hide from his record over the last 5 years of advising Trudeau in favour of raising carbon taxes, money-printing inflation, and blocking resource projects, all while he moved his company headquarters and jobs to the United States. You know, it's ironic. Mr. Carney is trying to distract from his many scandals and conflicts of interest, as well as his disastrous record as Justin Trudeau's economic advisor, by talking about Trump. He's the guy that sold out to Trump. 6 days after Donald Trump threatened Canada with tariffs to steal our jobs, Mark Carney announced to Brookfield shareholders that he would move his headquarters from Canada to New York. And when you asked him about it, he lied to your face. We got it in writing, and we proved it. He sold out Canada. He put his profit ahead of our people, and he did exactly what Donald Trump wanted. Never before have we had a Prime Minister so conflicted and compromised, and yet so little scrutinized. Just like when he supported carbon taxes in Canada while investing in American coal. He opposed Canadian pipelines while his company bought Middle East pipelines. He has millions of dollars of financial interests that run against Canada's national interests. He gets rich making Canadians poor. You can be sure about one thing. Donald Trump's going to have a briefing on his desk of all of Mark Carney's American investments. And he is going to leverage all of Carney's profit motive against the interest of the Canadian people. And we know Carney will sell out Canada for his personal profit. He's already done it. He's systematically done it his entire time as a corporate insider. Giving the Liberals a fourth term will not change any of that. Carney puts himself first. Conservatives will put Canada first. Putting Canada first means cutting bureaucracy and taxes. It means passing a big, beautiful, bring-it-home tax cut, lowering tax rates on work, investment, energy, and home building. It means axing the carbon tax for real, for good, for everyone, forever. It means repealing the Liberal No New Pipelines Law C-69 and instead granting rapid permission to our companies to build more pipelines, more natural gas exports, more data centers, mines, and other natural resources to bring home powerful paychecks and production to our people. We need an east-west pipeline, and we need to say it in both French and English. Nous avons besoin d'une pipeline d'un océan de l'ouest à l'est. Dans les deux langues officielles, il faut le dire sans équivoque. Pour briser notre dépendance sur les Américains. We need to break our dependence on the Americans by building east-west pipelines. We need more interprovincial trade. We need to unleash our free enterprise system to reverse the helplessness that the Liberals have caused over the last 10 years of tax and keep it in the ground extremism. So more than anything, we need to bring back the Canadian promise. In a country where we trade with each other, we produce our own resources, we build homes for our people, we protect our weak and vulnerable while standing up to the Americans abroad. The Canadian promise is that anyone from anywhere can achieve anything. That hard work gets you a great life in a beautiful home, on a safe street, protected by solid borders and brave troops under a proud flag. Canada. Let's bring it home.
Mr. Poilievre, what economic and diplomatic experience do you have to go up against Donald Trump?
Oh, quite a lot, actually. So I was the Minister of Jobs and housing in the Harper government, during which time housing cost half as much as it does today. I helped Mr. Harper cut the GST, cut income tax, cut business tax, and balance the budget. Over my time in Parliament, I've been scrutinizing and studying the books on the Public Accounts Committee, the Operations Committee, the Finance Committee. And if you want any proof that my economic ideas are the best, the Liberals are all trying to pretend that they're copying them right before the election. All the big economic questions of the last 5 years, Mark Carney has been wrong and exactly wrong, and I have been right. I said 5 years ago the money printing would cause inflation. He said deflation was on the horizon. I turned out to be right. I said the carbon tax would drive up food prices, and it did. Drove them up 37% faster in Canada than in the United States of America. I was the first parliamentarian to predict that we would have the inflation crisis, while Carney, Freeland, Trudeau, and others were saying that we would not. I was the first one to be, along with my Conservative colleagues, fighting for pipelines. Pipelines now everyone claims that they support after opposing them for the last 10 years. So if Mr. Carney is so smart on economics, how is it that he was so wrong for so long on all of the economic issues? One thing I don't have experience with is taking jobs out of Canada, moving them to the United States, selling out our resource workers to support Middle Eastern resource workers. That's not the kind of experience that I have, but that's not the kind of experience that we want.
Despite what you're saying, recent polls are showing that more Canadians trust Mark Carney to deal with Donald Trump rather than you. Why do you think your message is not cutting through and getting through to Canadians?
Canadians have a choice in the next election. Do they want to give the Liberals a fourth term in power after they drove up housing costs, food prices, and taxes, blocked resource projects, and made us more reliant on Trump's America? Or do they want Canada First Conservatives who will axe taxes, build homes, unleash production of our resources, and bring home paychecks, production, and sovereignty to our country?
Mr. Poilievre, what instructions have you given your caucus members and your candidates about wearing MAGA merchandise or using MAGA slogans?
Well, my instruction is that we should put Canada first. We want to put our country first, stand up for our country against both American aggression, but also against the destructive Liberal policies that have made us helpless and reliant on the U.S. I have also made it clear to my members of Parliament that we should favour bringing jobs back to Canada, not move them to the United States of America as Mark Carney did when he had the chance.
Do you still think we're going to have a carbon tax election, considering Mark Carney says he's going to scrap the consumer one?
We are going to have a carbon tax election because Mark Carney has proposed to add another industrial carbon tax on top of the existing one. In days, Donald Trump could impose tariffs on Canadian steel. At the same time as Mark Carney says that he wants a new carbon tax on Canadian steel. By the way, it's not me that says his tax would apply to steel. It's him. In an interview he gave to CTV in Atlantic Canada a month ago, he claimed that taxing steel was a great idea because people, he says, don't use steel anymore. Well, this building would come crashing down without steel. Automobiles would be impossible to make without steel. Our civilization is, the bones of our civilization is steel. And Mark Carney wants to bring in a big industrial carbon tax on our steel workers at exactly the same time as Trump plans to tariff our steel. The combination of Trump's tariffs and carbon tax, Carney's tax, would destroy our steel sector and threaten our national security.
Cette taxe carbone dont vous parlez, la portion industrielle qui existe déjà, allez-vous la garder? C'est pas clair.
C'est pas clair qu'il veut. Ce qui est clair, il veut ajouter une deuxième taxe industrielle sur le carbone. C'est pas juste la première qui est déjà en place, c'est une deuxième taxe. Et aussi, il faut souligner qu'il a dit, si je peux me permettre de répondre à la question, Il a dit que c'est une deuxième taxe qui va lever des milliards de dollars pour financer un système de crédit extrêmement compliqué. Et en fin de compte, ça va appliquer aussi au Québec, la taxe qu'il propose, parce que il a besoin de le faire de façon nationale. Il doit expliquer comment nos travailleurs vont compétitionner contre les Américains avec une deuxième taxe carbone sur nos industries à travers le Canada. En ce qui concerne notre programme pour les élections, vous allez le voir après que l'élection est déclenchée.
Last question. What do you think about Doug Ford?
Ask Mr. Harper about Mr. Carney saying that Mr. Harper offered him the post of finance minister.
Mr. Harper confirmed to me that Mark Carney has taken credit for things he has not done, and that if I could, he said that Mr. Carney he was astonished really at how Mark Carney took credit for things he never did. And at the same time, we know this is a pattern for Mr. Carney. He claimed that he helped Paul Martin balance the budget in 1998. Well, Mark Carney wasn't even in the country or working for the government at that time. He didn't join the government as a bureaucrat until 2004. So this is a consistent pattern of Mark Carney lying to the Canadian people. You know what I find interesting about Mark Carney? He doesn't want to take responsibility for the things he actually did, like advising Trudeau for the last 5 years, but he wants to take credit for things he did not do, like managing Canada's